Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. How are you guys? I hope you are in good condition. Well, for the first, let me introduce our group. We are from group 1 and the members are Avida Prameyshela, Ebit, Zein, Ulfa, Fina Prisilliani, Laily Nur Alfiah, and Luthfia, Uswatun, Hasanah. Well, what are we going to present now? We are going to present our journal review, and it will be present for the first by Avida Prameyshela, then Ebit, Zein, Ulfa, Fina Prisilliani, Luthfia, Uswatun, Hasanah, and the last is me, Laily Nur Alfiah. So don't miss it and enjoy about this presentation. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My name is Avida Prameyshela. I will be start from the title. Okay, this article is Theoritical Models of Culture Shock and Adaptation in International Student in Higher Education. It's written by Yu Fangzhou, Divya Jinda Snape, Kate Topping, and John Thurman. It published online in 16 May 2008. It's from the journal Studies in Higher Education, volume 33, number 1, February 2008, in the page 63 until 75. Okay, and now about the rationale for choosing these topics, or the reasons for choosing these topics. Theoretical concept of culture shock and adaptation are revealed as applies to pedagogical adaptation of students sojourners in an unfamiliar culture. The pedagogical adaptation of international students in higher education is a subset of the culture shock experienced by a wide range of culture travelers. Now about purpose for choosing this topic is to find out if match or mismatch of pedagogical expectation has the merit of leading not only to research publications but also to implication for the pre and post departure preparation of both teacher and student that may lead the more faithful adaptation by it. Okay, and now about the research questions. There are 4 research questions. From the first is, what is the historical perspective on culture shocks? And the second is, what is the contemporary perspective on intercultural context? The third is, how to evaluate and synthesize traditional and contemporary approaches. And the fourth is, are these issues the same for all such cultures and all host cultures? Okay, maybe enough for me, and it will be continued by my friend. Thank you.
My name is Ebit, Ulfa, and I will talk about literature review. Then let's start on the historical perspective on the culture shock. The systematic research on overseas students only appeared after the 1950s, when there was a flood research on their social and psychological problems, according to Ward, Bernard, and Farnham in their journal in 2001. Many studies on the migration literature highlight in the negative aspect of exposure another culture, and this was perpetuated in much of the students' journal literature. By the 1980s, a different view had emerged regarding sojourning as a learning experience rather than a medical nuisance. Then, let's move to contemporary perspective on the intercultural contract. At 1968, Farnham and Bernard explained that the study of the culture shock has come to draw more from of psychology and education than a medicine. Some of approach model be well more established, such as culture learning models and stress coping models and social identification theories have become more prominent. The first theory is cultural learning. This approach focuses on behavioral aspects of intercultural contract regarding social interaction, as skilled and mutually organized as performance. Shock is understood as the stimulus for acquisition of culture-specific skills that are required to engage in new social interaction. The second theory is stress coping and adjustment theories. This approach derived from early psychological model of impact of life event, shock as term of inherently stressful life changes. So people engaging in cross-cultural encounters need to be resilient, adapt, and develop coping strategies and tactics. The last theory is social identification theory. This theory focuses on cognitive component on the adaptation process. During cross-cultural contact, people receive themselves in much broader context, such as like a little fish in a bigger pond. This can lead anxiety to provoking charge in perception of self-identity, especially where identity was previously constructed largely from local social interaction. And this theory divides into two conceptual approaches. First is acculturation and identity, and number two is social identity.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Fina Prisilliani. I will continue about the explanation from my group, and I handle about the discussion. So the discussion in this video is about anything that talk in the journal that we choose. Okay, first point is Sojourners, culture shock, and adaptation. So to make us easier for understanding, Sojourners have similar meaning with comers. Comers are immigrant. Okay, most comers assume that their new society or their new culture in the new countries is upright like their home country. So it means that some of comers that come to other countries thinks that maybe in this area is have similar habits, similar culture with my own culture in my hometown. And then Sojourners were dominated. Comers were dominated by students in high-level of scholar programs. So the comers in other country is dominated by students in high level of scholarship programs. So many comers in so many countries that comes from students because of scholarship programs. The fact that there are so many differences in the new society about affective behavior and cognition and their home country society bring them to the culture shocks. Okay, like I said before, so the difference in culture, in habit, or in behavior between our hometown and house town, or our home country and host country, cause the culture shocks for us. The next, students' adaptation problems being a very big deal now. It is because the process for adapting may be stressful, hard, and create a mental health problem for some comers. So maybe this is become a mental health problem because this is very stressful or very hard for the some of comers. Next point is survive from culture shocks. Comers must realize that their home and host country is different in many things. So to the comers, to the immigrant, must realize that their culture is very different from their home country and their host country. And to be successful in facing culture shocks, sojourners or comers must doing adaptation and acculturation culture in the host country. Then there are three kinds of acculturation. First is unidimensional, second is bidimensional, and third is categorical. So in unidimensional, this model sees home and host culture as opposing rather than counterbalancing. So it is not good. It is not too good if you practice this, because this model is sees that home and host culture is very opposite rather than counterbalance. So they just see if the two of host culture and home culture is different, is opposite, and not think that they will be balancing both of them. And second is bidimensional, and the bidimensional approach is a balanced model of acculturation and identity. So the bidimensional is the opposite from unidimensional. And next is categorical. So this is a very complex acculturation which is combined four acculturation, and there are four acculturation in the categorical is integration, separation, assimilation, and marginalization. So integration means that integration means that sojourners perceive themselves as high in both of home and host culture's identification. Next is separation, implies that they perceive high in home culture identification but low in host culture identification. And for assimilation is opposite from separation. That means they see themselves as high in host culture identification but low in home culture identification. And the last is the marginalization. That means they see themselves low in both of home and host culture identification. And next point from survival from culture shock is process of intercultural adaptation. So in intercultural adaptation there are some process. First is cross-cultural transition or life change intercultural context, or the comers or the people feel changes in their culture for coming to other country. And then next step is stress. The comers, the people which who is come to other country may be feeling stressed because the culture shocks. And the next step is stress coping strategies. So in this step you start to learn how to adapt in your new area, your new society. And the last before that is response. So in this step you can respond in affective, behavioral, and cognitive, or ABC. And the last is outcomes. And in this step you may you may understand about the psychological and socio-cultural in your new society. And the last one is application of the acculturation model to international students. As I say in the beginning, that most of Sojourners were dominated by students in high-level scholarship programs. So in this point is application of the acculturation model to international students. So first point is social and behavioral adaptation. In this application, students must develop their friendship networks. With more friends, they will be more success in survive from culture shocks and easier to adapt in new social culture. And the second one is effective adaptation. In this adaptation, you need to looking for social support. So sometimes or in some place, the foreign students will as if discriminate or bully. So you need to looking for social support that makes you safe and success in culture shocks. And the next and the last is cognitive adaptation. In this adaptation, students need to understand each other about the difference between their stereotype and class behaviors. For example, is in this journal is about China students and the American students, that in China, the teacher is become a figure that students see, and they can't asking about anything because the teacher is someone who understand the material. But in America, maybe the student from America is very independent and very critical, so they will ask many questions to their professor. So if the American and the Chinese people in the one class, they need to understand each other about the difference between the stereotype and class behaviors. Thank you so much.
Now friends, we are discuss about making links between studies. Now agreements. First, author Burnham and Ponsner make this point. Strongly advocate the learning of social cultural skills because of their theoretical robustness and because they also lead to training methods. This is of course very important to be used as learning material because by applying social skills, by learning to interact with others, you can increase cultural knowledge that was previously unknown. That way immigrants can reduce the shock between cultures in different countries. Second, again, it is possible to see how author Wards, Metzner, and Burnham at 2001 systematic research on overseas students only appeared after the 1950, when there was a flood of research on their social and psychological problems. The fact that there are so many differences in the new society, their affect behavior and cognition, and their home country society bring them to the culture shock students adaptation problems being a very big deal now. It is because the process for adapting may be stressful, hard, and create mental health problems for some sojourners. No disagreements. However, there is some evidence. Redmond and Bunyi at 1993 that Asian students sojourning in the UK and USA experienced the greatest difference in cultural expectation. For that reason, they may constitute a useful extreme case for research purposes in relation to student sojourners in general. Second, conversely, Cortazzi and Zein at 1997 argue against simply expecting sojourning students to assimilate host nation ways, because this aspect of culture were deep-rooted and change could be seen as profound threat to identity. Instead, they propose a process of cultural synergy, asking for mutual efforts from both host teachers and sojourning students to understand one another's culture. Next, we are discuss about summary table. Summary table about traditional theoretical approach to culture shock from Ponsner 1982. There are three theories: grief and bereavement. Second, locus of control. Third, social skill and culture learning. Next, epistemology origin. Epistemology origin is the philosophical study of the point or place where something begins, arises, or derives. An originator is a person who creates or initiates something. Is enough for me. The next presenter is Laily Nur Alfiah. Times is yours.
Now I want to tell you about the conclusion about this journal review. Well, before we are going to the conclusion, for your information, that early models of culture shock were often based on medical perspective and focus on mental health issues, including both predisposing factors and consequences of migration. Including both predisposing factors and consequences of migration. Later, models were disease for the conclusion. Number 1, based on wider social, psychological, and educational theories and regarded the traveler as an active agent rather than the victim of pathology. The second, component variables and interactive process within cultural learning, stress and coping, and social identification aspects were identified from many research studies address the affective, behavioral, and cognitive ABC aspect of adaptation. So they would offer a more complex but more robust and predictively powerful model, and suggest practical action that was actually deliverable on a large scale. Indeed, interventions developed from this model were researched and found to be effective. Next, the conclusion number 3, the current article adapts the culture synergy model to focus on the pedagogical adaptation of international students in higher education. Well, the many variables identified suggest pathways for helping international students and their teachers to enhance the quality of their overall experience. Number 4. Institution-wide policies for awareness raising, guiding, and supporting international students and their teachers should be comprehensive, easily accessible, and actually put into practice. This article focuses on particularly Chinese students coming to the UK because it seems possible that the experiences of students from the culture and or with different destinations will differ. However, there is some evidence that Asian students, this is from the last conclusion, that Asian students sojourning in the UK and USA experience the greatest differences in cultural expectation. For that reason, they may constitute a useful extreme case for research purpose in relation to the students' sojourners in general. So for the reference, you can see it on the screen shown for the journal article if you want to download the article. So how? Have you any question for us? If you have any question for us, let us know, and you can contact us on the screen shown at the Gmail. Then I think it's enough for this presentation. The last essay. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bye bye. Have a nice day and stay healthy, stay safe, and keep smiling.